What's up, everybody? Today I want to do a quick but actually useful rundown on a bunch of AI builder topics I've been looking at lately. We're going to cover ZeroClaw, which looks like fast autonomous AI assistant infrastructure, the ongoing Claude Code versus Cursor debate because people are still arguing over which workflow is better. Vibe marketing, which is basically using AI not just to build the product but to run the content and growth machine around it. Some interesting AI use cases like finding cheap flights, cloud hooks with sound effects, and free or cheap models you can run locally. Then I want to touch on Roblox AI builder concept, an open source Cluely style assistant, how to run local models on an M2 MacBook, and finally some dead simple app ideas people could build fast. So this is basically a builder stream, tooling workflows, product ideas, and where this whole space seems to be going. Let's get into it. Let me bring up my other screen to the stage here and let's jump into the first segment. So, first off, ZeroClaw. Now, ZeroClaw, the positioning here is interesting. It's being described as fast, small, fully autonomous AI assistant infrastructure that you can deploy anywhere and swap anything. That alone tells me the pitch is not here's another chatbot. The pitch is infrastructure. That matters because I think a lot of people are still thinking way too small when it comes to AI tools. They're thinking in terms of a single interface or a single model, but the real power is in building systems that can one, swap models, two, run across environments, three, stay lightweight, and four, operate autonomously without needing a giant bloated setup. That's what makes something like ZeroClaw interesting. Now, if you're a serious builder, the kind of this kind of tool matters more than any other flashy demo because the question is not just can AI do a task? The real question is can I build an AI powered system that is portable, modular, and cheap enough to run and reliable enough to actually use? That's a whole different level. So when I look at ZeroClaw, I'm thinking that is the type of, or this is the type of project people should study if they care about agent infrastructure, self-hosting, autonomy, and swapping components without rebuilding the whole stack every 5 minutes. And speaking of workflows, that leads perfectly into the next topic, which is the eternal fight right now, Claude Code versus Cursor. Now, this debate keeps coming up because both tools are useful, but people use them differently, and that's the real key. A lot of the takes online are basically treating it like one tool has to win, but I don't think that that's the smartest way to think about it. I think the better question is what is each tool best at inside an actual production workflow, which is what I'm good at since I use these tools every single day building apps, right? So here's how I see it. Cursor is great when you want tight IDE integration, quick edits, inline fixes, rapid iteration, and pretty much when you want to be able to just paste something in there and have Cursor sort of figure out what you want it to do, and your prompt is kind of very raw, it's not very structured. I would say, and you also are trying to give it context. I feel like Cursor makes it easier to provide context to your conversation as well. So yeah, repo wide context inside of a familiar development environment, and that feeling of coding directly in the editor with AI always close by. So that's what you get with Cursor. So it fits naturally into an engineer's workday. But Claude Code feels stronger when you want more deliberate execution, deeper reasoning on bigger coding tasks, stronger refactors planning, or when you want the model to behave more like an actual technical operator instead of just autocomplete with benefits, right? And I think that's why this debate won't really simmer down at any point because they're not really the same experience. One feels like an AI powered editor, the other feels more like an AI engineering operator. And depending on how you work, that changes everything. So my take is this. If you're using AI seriously, the answer probably is not Cursor or Claude Code. The answer is use both correctly. Well, before I get into that, I would say I actually just switched up my workflow from using Cursor to using Codex alongside Claude Code. because ChatGPT is something that I already pay a premium subscription for, and I wanted to start getting more usage out of Codex since it wasn't something that was a part of my workflow. And I've been happy with that. I actually made that transition yesterday. So what you essentially want to do, and why I did that, was you want to use one for speed, flow, and editing, and you want to use the other for deeper task execution, reasoning, restructuring, and playbook level thinking. So you want to start getting smarter about how you're using AI instead of just being a good prompt engineer. You want to start thinking about your workflow and how you actually structure your prompts, what context your assistant or your agent is actually given, what sort of rules that they always kind of use foundationally. So those things start to become important. So that's usually the smarter move than becoming a fanboy for just one interface, right? Also, a lot of people blame the tools when the real problem is their workflow. If you're feeling like you're not as productive as you were in the past, or you're not as productive, with the new tool, or maybe you're running out of requests sooner, it's probably, of course, prices change and models change. Not AI models, but pricing models change as far as whatever company you're buying a subscription from. But it's usually because of bad prompt quality is why you're being inefficient. No task breakdown, so you're just jumping in and giving it a prompt, telling it to build something without breaking out the task. No system for when to use which model, no separation between quick edits and deep work. So these are all things that you want to not avoid doing, right? You want to have a plan for these things. You want to actually be making sure that your model is breaking down your AI model is breaking down the task before it actually gets going. So this is more of user error more often than tool failure. So when I see posts comparing Cursor to Claude Code, the thing I'm really paying attention to is not who says which one is better. It's more so I'm paying attention to why they think that and what job they're trying to do, what kind of repo they're in, how they structure their AI workflow. That's where the signal is, right? Now, switching gears here for a second, let's jump into vibe marketing. Now, this next concept is one of the most interesting things in AI right now, and that's what some people are calling it, right? Vibe marketing, quote unquote. So this is the idea that AI doesn't just want to help you build the product. It helps you build and run the entire growth machine around the product. The breakdown I saw was basically step one, use something like Opus or Codex to ship the actual product. Core features, backend, auth, infrastructure. Step two, use Claude Code to design the playbook. That means content formats, hook templates, lead magnets, response rules, tone of voice, weekly experiments. Step three, use something like OpenClaw to run that playbook continuously. Ads, post drafts, free tools, repurposed content, campaigns, replies, follow-ups, experiments. And then step four, use dashboards to see what is actually working, saves, shares, replies, clicks, signups. That's powerful because it moves AI from being just a coding assistant to being a kind of growth operating system, right? And honestly, this is where a lot of founders should be paying attention, because a lot of you guys are good or getting good at the coding portion, at the building portion, right? You're getting better at using AI to build, but you're forgetting about distribution, you're forgetting about marketing, you're forgetting about someone still has to sell the product, someone still has to get it in front of people, right? So the old model was build product first, then later figure out marketing. The smarter model now is build product and growth systems together. That's the unlock. So start thinking. If you're a founder, especially if you're not a technical founder, this is how you want to start thinking. Well, more so, especially if you're a technical founder, this is how you want to start thinking, because oftentimes us technical founders can build the product, but then we stop at distribution because now it's like we don't know what to do. We don't we can't we expect to build it and then they will come, a kind of situation, but it doesn't really work like that. So if AI can help write the code, write the posts, test the hooks, generate the campaigns, and also repurpose the content, answer comments, feed performance back into the next experiment, then you're not just building software, you're building a machine. And if you're a solo founder or a small team, this matters a lot. I want to say this matters the most. All right, now let's jump into our next segment, which leads me into talking about OpenClaw. Now, for this segment, I'm going to actually bring my face back up here nice and big. So this what interests me about OpenClaw is not just the novelty of look, AI can do things. What interests me is always on execution, right? While I'm sleeping. So that's the dream a lot of founders have, something that doesn't just assist them once, but keeps operating while they sleep, drive, work, or build the next thing. If you can combine a strong product, a content playbook, an automation system, and a way to keep experiments running in the background, then you start getting leverage that used to require a whole team. Now, obviously, there's a lot of hype in this space, and some of these tools overpromise, but the direction is very real. We are clearly moving toward AI agents for execution, not just for suggestion. And the people who figure out how to connect product development with content operations, outreach, follow up, and testings are going to move way faster than people still doing everything manually. Woo, that was a mouthful. Now, let's jump into our next segment here. Now, this is a very interesting one. And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and bring my screen back up here. Give me 1 second. Now, alrighty. So as you guys can see, here is a practical use case that people love because it hits real life, right? Using AI to book cheaper flights. Now, I saw this thread right here. Shout out to AI Panda X. If you're on Twitter, make sure you go and follow him on Twitter or her. I'm not sure, what the gender is. But I saw this thread about 7 prompts to use before booking your next trip with a pretty dramatic before and after price difference. As you can see, $1,190 flight, and what was paid was actually $150. So he used AI to get this pricing down. I want to say almost to about like 90% reduction, 80 to 90% reduction, right? So most people are using AI, or actually whether every number is perfect or not, the bigger point is valid. Most people are using AI too narrowly. They think AI is only for coding, writing, or schoolwork. But AI is increasingly useful for travel optimization, comparison shopping, trip planning, route evaluation, timing recommendations, and getting smarter about options you would not have thought to check yourself. This is the real shift. AI is becoming a decision layer, not just a content layer. And once people internalize that, they'll start using it for all kinds of high leverage decisions: travel, pricing, negotiation prep, job searching, business outreach, productivity planning, all of it. So even something as simple as cheaper flights is actually part of a bigger pattern. AI as an edge in everyday decisions. And before we move on here, I want to go ahead and give you guys some of these prompts, right? And I'll leave this linked up in the description box below so you guys can actually check these prompts out and check this tweet out for yourself. But so number one, flexible route optimizer. So find the cheapest routes from departure to destination using flexible dates, nearby airports, alternate airlines, and creative layovers while keeping travel time reasonable. Number two, booking time analyzer. Analyze historical price patterns for this route. So then you paste in your route. Identify cheaper booking windows, best travel days, and seasonal pricing trends. Number three, hidden fare opportunities. Check split ticket, hidden city, and multi city options for this route. Paste in your route. Highlight savings potential and clearly explain the associated risk. Number four, airline direct deal finder. List airlines flying this route. Paste your route. Identify direct booking discounts, regional carriers, and lesser known fare deals most travelers overlook. Number five, points and miles optimizer. Evaluate whether credit card points, airline miles, or transfer partners can significantly reduce this flight costs and suggest best redemption strategy. Number six, price monitoring strategy. Create a simple system to track fare drops for this route. Paste in your route, including alert tools, timing recommendations, and booking triggers. Number seven, final booking audit. Don't skip this one. Review this itinerary, paste in your itinerary for hidden fees, baggage costs, risky layovers, and cheaper alternatives before confirming. So those are the 7 prompts you guys can use. Um, so make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. This is actually very useful, right? Very, very useful. Now, another very interesting thing that I actually came across was this is a small one, but I love it because it's very clever. And it's using Claude hooks with sounds. So the system alerts you when a task finishes or when it needs a permission granted. That by itself is useful. But the fun twist was adding sounds from childhood games like StarCraft, Warcraft, or Mario. So this sounds minor, but it's actually smart for two reasons. So first, it reduces friction. You instantly know when the model is done. You instantly know when the model is done or waiting. Second, it makes the workflow more enjoyable, and that matters more than people admit. If you're spending hours every day working with AI tools, tiny UX details add up. Good feedback loops matter, audio cues matter, emotional design matters. The best workflows are not just technically efficient, they're pleasant enough that you want to actually stay in them. That's underrated. So I think more people should think about their AI environment the same way they think about their code editor, desk setup, keyboard, or operating system. Make the workflow yours because a workflow you enjoy is one you'll actually stick with. Now, let's move forward. And here's the actual GitHub repo for the Cloud Code Notifications Manager. All right. Now, moving on. Free AI models and running things locally. So there was a note about mini Macs being used as a free model to run OpenClaw on a Mac Mini, as you can see here from this tweet I am looking at on the screen. So this is the kind of thing you love seeing because it points to a bigger strategy. How do you reduce your dependency on expensive cloud tooling while still getting useful output? That's the game because the real bottleneck for a lot of builders is not ideas, but cost. Inference costs, subscription costs, API costs, always on automation costs. So if people can figure out how to run decent workflows on local hardware like a Mac Mini, or use cheaper or free models strategically, that changes the economics. And once the economics change, more experimentation becomes possible. That's when new categories emerge. Because now it's not can only funded startups afford this, it becomes can a solo builder run something meaningful from home? And that's a much more interesting world, right? Now, moving on. Let's talk about the Roblox builder angle with Matan. This one is especially interesting because it's basically pointing toward AI assisted creation inside one of the biggest user generated ecosystems in the world. Now, this is not a small niche. Roblox is massive. Now, this is interesting for me because I was actually working on something like this because as you may or may not know, I actually build Roblox games, right? And Roblox has its own integrated AI assisted sort of conversation chat that you can use, and it does things like give you suggestions. It even codes for you, right? But it's not very efficient from my experience using it. And I was using it, I want to say about 4 to 5 months ago. And so I don't know how far it's come now, but I came across this tool called Matan, which isn't released yet, but it showed me that I'm not the only one thinking about solutions in areas of opportunity like Roblox, right? Now, this isn't something that's easy to do, right? That's why not many people are going to jump in and say, let me figure out how to solve AI assisted building for Roblox games that anyone can do very easily, right? No one is looking to solve this because it's something that's challenging. But Matan is actually taking on a challenge, and I'm also someone who's taken on a challenge. I just haven't productized anything as of yet. But Roblox is massive. So when I see a builder tool like this, the first question is not just can I get access? The first question is what category are they trying to own early, as I was just mentioning? And the answer seems pretty obvious, right? So AI assisted game creation for a huge mainstream user base. So this is the first mover position worth paying attention to. If it's not released yet and there's just a wait list, that also tells you something else. The window is open. If someone is first, it means the category still has room. So even if they are able to get this released, let's say in the next 2 to 3 months, they're still the only player in this market, in this niche sort of market right here, right? So there's room for someone else to come in with another AI assisted tool for Roblox, maybe that has a different sort of a UI, right? Maybe that works a little bit differently, right? But that solves the problem still. So this is where, as a founder or a developer or engineer, this is where your attention should be focused on. Like, where is the opportunity for me, right? At least this is where my focus is, right? I don't know where your focus is as a developer, but this is where my focus is because I have a family. I have a family to support, right? And I have to make sure that I'm always a step ahead so that I'm making sure that I'm relevant regardless of where AI is going or where AI currently is. So, the smarter question is, how do I Um, a smarter question then, how do I wait for this? Is how do I reverse engineer the direction and build a version of the idea myself? Not by cloning their branding, not by blindly copying, but by identifying the core loop. What is the user trying to do? What are the hardest steps, right? That's a key one. What are the hardest steps in the process? Where does AI remove the friction? And what does the MVP version of that look like? That's the builder mindset. So whenever you see a new product space like that, don't just consume it, deconstruct it. Now, moving on. So, our next segment is about open source Cluely alternatives. Um, Now, this is interesting because the pitch is basically you pay the API cost directly, but you avoid the SaaS tax. And I actually like that because it's very catchy, right? SaaS tax instead of sales tax. So let me see here. So that will always get attention, right? Because a lot of people are getting tired of stacked subscriptions everywhere. If there's an open source alternative that gives them more control and lower overhead, people will absolutely look at it. Now, obviously, self-hosting or running your own version is not as turnkey as paying for polished SaaS. You are trading convenience for flexibility and the cost control. But for technical users, founders, and builders, that can be a very good trade. And I think we're going to see more of this open source alternatives to AI productivity tools, AI assistants, automation layers, and personal operators. That pressure is healthy because it forces the paid tools to actually justify their margins. Okay. All right. Next. Well, hold on. Actually, before we move on to this one, so I came across this really interesting article that surprised me because I wasn't aware that Alibaba was actually in the LLM game. If you're familiar with Alibaba like I am or was before, we know them for drop shipping, right? We know them for e-commerce, wholesaling. I never imagined that Alibaba would be, creating their own LLM, but here we are, and it's very interesting. It's just very interesting to say the least, right? Now, so this segment is going to talk about running local LLMs on an M2 MacBook, which is what this article kind of gets into. The article is titled Step-by-Step Guide to Running Local Ollama Models on an M2 Mac for Offline Coding Assistance, which is important for my use case. And, obviously I have a M2 MacBook. Now, for the people who want to run or who want offline workflows, more privacy, or lower long-term costs, running local LLMs on an M2 MacBook is a huge topic. This matters because the more capable local models become, the less you need to rely on constant API calls for everything. That does not mean local beats cloud for every use case. It doesn't. But for offline coding help, private experimentation, quick drafts, lower cost iteration, and learning how these systems work, local is incredibly valuable. And Apple Silicon has made this much more realistic than it used to be. So I think a lot more devs should at least experiment with a local stack. Not because it will replace every hosted model, but because it gives you optionality. And optionality is power. If the internet is down, the API is slow, the provider rate limits you, or the cost spikes, and you still have a fallback. This matters, right? But this is not something you'll actually realize until you're in a situation where you don't have the internet or you don't have AI readily available to you from a cloud provider. And now you're wishing you had set something like this up. That way you can still be efficient with the local LLM and still experiment. Now, let's move back over to our previous page that we jumped the gun to before. Now, this is talking about easy app ideas, right? Now, this is something that's going to be very useful for a lot of you out there because I know one thing I've seen people mention is that they have a hard time coming up with ideas. I'm not sure how you have a hard time coming up with ideas when AI is literally free via Google, but that's besides the point. So one thing that stood out was help people quit something. Now, this is a strong category because the pain is obvious and emotional. You have things like porn, vaping, smoking, alcohol, sugar, junk food, doom scrolling, social media, gaming. These are all very real habits with real pain points and real identity struggles, which means if you build something in that space, you are not selling a feature. You are selling progress, control, relief, and self respect. Now, that's powerful. The reason I like app ideas like this is because they're simple to understand. You don't need a 10-minute explanation, and people instantly get it. And the best ideas often have that property: clear problem, clear emotion, clear outcome. And these are also easier to market, easier to explain, and also easier to validate. So if someone wants to build a simple AI powered app fast, this category wouldn't be a bad place to start. Now let me get my face back up here nice and big so you guys can see me. Now overall, I want to say, let me fix my screens. Overall, here's my takeaway from all of this. The AI space is moving in a few very clear directions right now. More autonomous infrastructure, right? More workflow specialization, more local and low cost execution, more AI native marketing systems, more open source alternatives, and more tools that help solo builders operate like teams. That's the real pattern. Not just chat, not just code generation, and not just prompts. System, execution, leverage. That's where things are going. If you're building right now, the smartest move is probably not to obsess over one tool. It's to design a workflow where each tool has a job. One tool ships product, one tool structures playbooks, one tool automates distribution, one tool tracks outcomes, and you sit on top making decisions. That's the stack. If you enjoyed this live, make sure you guys follow me for more on YouTube. I'm also on TikTok and GitHub. Check out the links below in the description box, and I will see you guys in the next live stream tomorrow. As always, keep coding.